Mount Baker, the beautiful snow-clad volcano in the distance, and overlooking beautiful Bay of Port Susan. So today I've selected for our enjoyment and amusement an article published by Paramhansa Yogananda, and these broadcasts, Padma and I are selecting different, largely unpublished writings. They may have been published at one time, of course, but now much harder to find. Writings of Paramhansa Yogananda. And this one, in what was published in his magazine in May of 1933, is entitled The Art of Living. Now, sadly, for some of us at least, that term and the use of that term, art of living, has been taken, you might say, by a more modern, more recent spiritual organization and teacher. So Ananda and devotees of Yogananda may be precluded from using that term, but he, I think I can say he used it first, and it's a wonderful term. He was very active in promoting balanced living during his barnstorming days, which extended into the 1930s. And he also, when I say balanced, he also made a big thing about East and West and bringing the best of East and West together. And you'll find in this article that's very much what he's talking about. So let's get into a few quotations here. He says, everyone builds our aspirations and desires according to prenatal and postnatal influences. By prenatal, he means from past lives, and postnatal, of course, he means those environmental influences of our family and upbringing and our nation and culture. Okay. Children, he writes, in the beginning of their lives are about the same everywhere. That is why Jesus said, "Suffer the little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for of such is the kingdom of heaven." Isn't that an interesting way of putting it? He says divinity is the one nationality of all children the world over. It's only as they grow older and they begin to take on the characteristics of their family and their culture and so forth. And I would also add that some of their prenatal characteristics begin to bear fruit, if that's the right word. We get more complicated. The simplicity of a baby, an infant, or even an early toddler, Yogananda said elsewhere in his teachings that in the first 6 years of a child's life, one can sometimes sensitively tune in and feel and observe the characteristics of that soul in the immediately preceding lifetime. Okay, so he says, he goes on to talk about how the different nationalities, we should look at them and adopt in our lives the best qualities of these different nationalities. He highlights India and America, as he often did throughout his life, as being, you might say, the leaders of those core qualities, the one being material efficiency, to use his term, and the other, India, being what he sometimes called spiritual efficiency through the practice of yoga. And so, but all nations have qualities. But then he also points out that self-realized souls, saintly souls, very often, in fact, by definition, I suppose one would say, I have said, transcend those environmental influences because they live more by the promptings of their own soul. Now, the soul has its unique qualities, but they're not qualities that are derived from environment of any particular lifetime. Those unique qualities are stamped into our soul, you might say, at the beginning of time. He says, okay, then he mentions the names of famous people in his time, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, as representatives of the material efficiency, Mahatma Gandhi and his own lineage of masters for the spiritual efficiency of India. But then, and this is really why I selected this article, and then in his own charming fashion, he lists all these different ways to express what he calls the art of living. I think you'll enjoy these. I will now enumerate a few practical methods for uniformly developing body, mind, and soul. So listen up. 1. Eat more raw food and fresh fruits. Drink fresh milk and plenty of orange juice with ground nuts mixed in. Then he puts in parentheses, read and follow a good modern book on dietetics. I'm not sure what the word dietetics means, but I guess I can guess. And maybe that was his way of protecting himself from giving advice that wouldn't work for everybody, in the modern American way of lawsuits. But in any case, eat more raw food and fresh fruits. Drink fresh milk. Now, by fresh milk, did he mean raw milk? I suspect he did. Maybe pasteurized, but fresh. I'm not sure. He doesn't say. And plenty of orange juice with ground nuts mixed in. My understanding is that the ground nuts providing protein will help stabilize the blood sugars so that the orange juice doesn't cause too large of a spike. B. Fast 1 day a week on orange juice and use a suitable cleansing mineral oil as prescribed by your physician. Again, I think he's being a little bit protective there by mentioning a physician, and he should. But in his other lessons, he would recommend that the night before one's fast day once a week, or on other occasions, he would have you take senna leaves or Swiss Chris or some other natural laxative to help clean one out. Walk, run, or take some form of vigorous exercise with deep attention until you perspire. And get this, every morning, and every evening. Wow. Read and meditate on a passage from the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita, obtainable at any large bookstore. Then he goes on to, talk about reading great books like Shakespeare and other classics, reads the sciences, history of philosophy, East and West, comparative religion, ethics, psychology. And then he says, don't waste your time on cheap novels. Read a good health and spiritual magazine. Read the editorial and health articles in newspapers, and not just the comics or scandals. He himself enjoyed the Dagwood comics, he said, and he was just vehement in his protestations of what used to be called yellow journalism and the power of the press to destroy people's reputations by spreading gossip. Then this one will interest you. He says, go to a different church each Sunday. And I won't read the rest of it, but he said, keep doing this, not only to show your toleration, but to develop your appreciation. Call all temples, regardless of their denomination, by the common name, the temple of our God. But then he caveats that in the next one. He says, while honoring God in all man-made temples, learn to worship and contact him in the temple of deepest silence. Practice meditation for 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour at night. Okay. Only occasionally, go to see the best moral and spiritual plays or moving pictures. Already in his day, such forms of entertainment were, of course, gaining ground. Hollywood was, really at its peak back in the 30s, or 20s and 30s, I guess. And so he clearly had his reservations. Obey the good laws of your family, country, and all nations. Now, I want to emphasize the word good. Obey the good laws of your family, meaning those that are fair, just, reasonable, and so on. Speak kindly and follow fearlessly the truth wherever you perceive it. Love your family and country deeply so you may learn to love and serve people of all nations more, and learn to find God in all people, whatever race or religion. Next one is earn more and spend less by destroying luxurious habits. Now here's an interesting thing. He said, save enough so you can live on the interest of your savings. Now listen up. Next part is very interesting. Divide your life into 4 parts, putting the main emphasis on developing particular efficiency in one line during each of the 4 periods of life. Up to 25 years old, study, learn a trade, get a general education. From years 25 to 40, earn money, meaning save money is obviously. And from 40 to 50 years of age, live quietly, study, and meditate. From 50 years on, spend life in preaching and meditating deeply. Now, he's going to give us a couple of prayers which will end my talk today. Say this prayer: Heavenly Father, teach us to create a United States of the world with thy truth as our leader and president, which will guide us to live in loving brotherhood and urge us to develop our bodies, minds, and souls perfectly, in order that thy kingdom of heavenly peace, which is within us, may be made manifest in the actions of our daily life. Then he goes on, pray also, Heavenly Father, may thy love shine forever on the sanctuary of my devotion, and may I be able to awaken thy love in all hearts. Make me efficient, healthy, perfect in everything, so that I may inspire all my earthly brothers to be thy noble children. Above all, he writes, contact God first in the temple of silence, and then health, prosperity, and wisdom will be added unto you. Then he gives this charming little poem, which I will end with. The eons, one by one, are flying. The arrows, one by one, are gone. Dimly, slowly, life is fading, but still my soul is marching on. Okay, I don't know what arrows one by one are gone and what eons one by one are flying, but I guess that's the permission of poetry. The eons one by one are flying, the arrows one by one are gone. Dimly, slowly, life is fading, but still my soul is marching on. Isn't he just amazing? Very vigorous, very positive, very life-embracing, all-embracing of all life and people and nationalities and religions. Paramhansa Yogananda is clearly a world spiritual teacher for our age, for the age of globalization, for the age of education, for the age of personal initiative and self-responsibility. It's an age of energy. Okay, I hope you enjoy that as much as I did, and we are marching on.